CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Gunmen reportedly attacked Mali army base, killing at least 16 soldiers. Mass funeral ceremony held for Ethiopian plane crash victims. And death toll from New Zealand mass shooting reaches 50 as 28-year-old suspect is charged with murder. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme. An Egyptian photographer develops technology to allow the visually impaired to take photos. And in sport, African football legend Didier Drogba makes special appearance at the ongoing Special Olympics in the UAE. Let's go to Mali, where gunmen have attacked and briefly seized a Malian army base overnight. The incident took place in Mali's central Mopti region. The base is in the village of Diora. At least 16 soldiers were killed and 5 vehicles were destroyed. Central Mali has, in the past few years, been overrun by jihadists with links to Al-Qaeda. Violence by jihadist groups has increased every year since 2012. The groups use central and northern Mali as a launch pad for growing numbers of attacks across the Sahel region, especially on neighbours Niger and Burkina Faso. Turning now to the latest on the Ethiopian Airlines crash. Thousands of mourners accompanied 17 empty caskets draped in the national flag through the streets of the capital Addis Ababa on Sunday. Well, the service came after 1 day after officials delivered bags of earth to family members in place of the remains of their loved ones, as the identification process is expected to take some time. CGTN Coletta Wanjoy has more.
A candle for each of the Kenyan departed souls on the 10th March plane crash. 34 other candles for each of the other nationalities. Kenyans living and working in Ethiopia mourn the departed in the tragic accident that claimed 157 lives. Relatives and friends of the victims paid tribute to their loved ones.
Yared was a very competent, loving, and humorous person. It used to be fun hanging out with him. And I just want you to be assured and take comfort in the fact that Yared will always be remembered as a hero.
This is my fourth daughter, my fourth child, 30 years old. And as I heard a colleague of ours says, she left a child of 2 years and 4 months. She got married in 2016. So the family is devastated. She was a jovial lady, hardworking.
We have deeply lost a young girl. She had not known even a friend. I didn't know even if she had a boyfriend or a fiancé or something like that. But that is it. Fate has it that way.
DNA samples from the relatives have already been collected.
Most of the family members of the victims of the plane crash have accepted to wait for the results of the DNA, which the Ethiopian government says may take months.
Ethiopia, however, says DNA process might not identify all the 157. There is a possibility some of the deceased may not be traced from the remains.
And preparation for the identification process is already started, and we will make sure that the post-mortem investigation will be started as soon as possible.
France continues to investigate the contents of the flight data and cockpit voices received from the 2 black boxes found in the wreckage. Ethiopia says there is no definite timeline for when investigations will be completed. New evidence is now pointing towards possibility of the plane having had control issues. But for many of these families, all they seek is solace. And these stones collected from the plane crash site are all they take back home. Coletta Onjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
In Kenya, a memorial service for those who died in the crash has also been held in the capital, Nairobi. Hundreds of well-wishers, diplomats and family members attended the ceremony held at the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. CGTN's Robert Nagila has this report.
A week after Ethiopian Flight 302 crashed, killing all 157 people on board, a memorial service was held at an Ethiopian Orthodox Church in Nairobi for those who lost their lives. Candles were lit for each person on board the ill-fated flight.
Ordinary words fail us. It's impossible to remain mute to this irrevocable loss, so I offer these thoughts of outreach as we assemble together to remember our loss in common prayer.
The Russian people, and on behalf of the ambassador and the embassy staff and our colleagues, were deep in sorrow, were together, were united, and then these days, and when 1 week has passed after this terrible tragedy, which took life of 3 Russian citizens as well, and their soul, they went together with the souls of the peoples who perished from all the countries.
To those who have lost their loved ones, we say it was God's plan, and as you believe, we ask for God's peace to be with you.
Flight 302 crashed about 60 kilometers outside the Ethiopian capital Addis 6 minutes after taking off. On board were 35 different nationalities, with Kenya the most affected, with 33 citizens dead.
All of us Kenyans were deeply affected by the tragedy that befell all of us, Ethiopians and Kenyans, and many other people last Sunday.
Family members and loved ones of the victims were flown to Addis, but the airline now says it may take up to 6 months to get DNA results identifying the deceased. Ethiopian Airlines says families will get death certificates of their departed in 2 weeks. For many of them, a start, as they seek some form of closure to the tragic events of Flight ET-302. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
A tropical storm has swept away bridges and homes in eastern Zimbabwe, killing at least 31 people. The cyclone has already caused widespread damage in Mozambique and Malawi. 19 people died in Mozambique. Cyclone Idai follows heavy rains in the country, which displaced 17,000 people. Well, the cyclone has also damaged infrastructure. More than 1.5 million people in 3 southern African countries have been affected by the storm. That's according to UN and government officials. South Africa's military has sent an aircraft with medical personnel to Mozambique and Malawi. Well, in Malawi, over 1,000 stranded women and children in the southern part of the country are seeking humanitarian support. This is after the severe flooding and heavy rains which devastated the region, destroying homes and infrastructure there. Our reporter Daniel Arap-Moy brings us the latest.
The Malawi floods has left a trail of destruction in the country's Chikwawa district, affecting hundreds of thousands of women and children. Life has become unbearable for many of these women whose gardens and homes have been washed away by the flood waters.
I only managed to rescue my children, while all my property was soaked in the water. I lost all goods and all kitchen utensils. This is when officials referred me to this place.
Agriculture in most of the flooded areas has been badly affected, with some 42,000 hectares of farmland destroyed. Roads and bridges have also been destroyed, cutting off many of the locals from Blantyre commercial city. Those severely affected by the heavy rains and flooding are currently seeking for humanitarian assistance at the Chikwawa District Evacuation Center.
We particularly ask the government to provide us with tents. We also need kitchen utensils and also agriculture inputs because the floods have put us in big trouble.
Majority of people that have been affected by the floods are women and children. and now they stand in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Meanwhile, the Department of Meteorology and Climate Change has warned of further heavy downpour that could trigger flash floods in flood-prone districts including Sanje, Falombe, Mangonchi, Salima and Karonga, among others. But with response efforts stretched to meet current humanitarian needs, the risk of further flooding could raise more fears. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN, Chikwawa District, Malawi.
At least 9 people have been killed in Nigeria's northeastern state of southern Kaduna. The attack happened on Saturday in a small farming community. No group has claimed responsibility for this latest attack in the area, and no arrests have been made yet. Southern Kaduna State has seen a resurgence of violence in recent months, leading to the death of over 150 people. CGTN's Samson Omali reports.
Armed men attacked Nandubok village in Sanga local government area of Kaduna State, killing 10 people. The attackers invaded the village, shooting sporadically. Eyewitnesses said no fewer than 30 houses were razed by the assailants. The state government, through its spokesman, Samuel Aruan, confirmed the number of casualties in a statement. The latest incident comes on the heels of recent attacks on the neighboring Kajuru local government area of the state, which has resulted in the displacement of over 3,000 people.
I think the situation is just the same. People wanting to attack villagers, take over their land, take over their houses, destroy their houses. And I think except something is done, it will persist.
The State Emergency Management Agency has been drafted to the affected communities to provide relief materials. Samson Omale, CGTN, Jos, Nigeria.
We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including death toll from New Zealand mass shooting reaches 50 as 28-year-old suspect is charged with murder. And Egyptian photographer develops technology to allow the visually impaired to take photos.
Data out of the country.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Perina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is vastly...
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We have changed, and this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
In New Zealand, police closed Dunedin Airport late on Sunday after a suspicious device was reported on the airfield. A statement said Dunedin Airport is currently closed and police and specialist teams have been deployed to determine the nature of the package. The country is currently on a state of high alert after a gunman who is believed to have lived in Dunedin killed 50 people in 2 mosques filled with worshippers on Friday. 28-year-old Australian Brenton Tarrant, a suspected white supremacist, was charged with murder on Saturday. Well, the grandmother and the uncle of Brenton Tarrant have spoken about this in an interview with Australia's 9 Network. The 2 family members say that they are still in shock.
I'm Brenton Tarrant's grandmother. We're all gobsmacked. We don't know what to think. It's, you know, the media's saying he's planned it for a long time, so he's obviously not of sound mind, I don't think. It's just so much for everything to take in that somebody in our family would do anything like this. It's only since he travelled overseas, I think, that that boy has changed. completely to the boy we knew.
What he's done,
Yes.
it's just not right.
To South Africa now, where a Holocaust and Genocide Centre has been opened in the capital, Johannesburg. The centre looks at genocide in the 20th century. It begins with Namibia's Herero and Nama genocide between 1904 and 1908 and the 1994 Rwandan genocide. CGTN's Yulisa Njamela has more.
The curated exhibition explores the history of genocide in the 20th century with a focus on the case studies of Holocaust and the Rwandan genocide, which resulted in the mass slaughter of people, mostly of the Tutsi minority.
We decided to focus on two main case studies. One, the Holocaust, that was during, of course, the Second World War, where many nations were involved and many were impacted by genocide or other atrocities and crimes against humanity. We also moved to tell the story of Rwanda. 25 years ago this year, the genocide in Rwanda happened exactly at the same time as a South African move to democracy. We commemorate 25 years to both events. And we decided to focus on both because the lessons are so important here in South Africa.
Stories told here are complex and agonizing. Items such as these clothes from victims and survivors of the Rwandan genocide, for instance, convey the toll these events took on ordinary people. Sylvestre Sendache is a survivor of the Rwandan genocide. He was only 14 years old when he hid in a Kigali church and watched the murder of his parents and 3 siblings.
What happened in the past, we've been seeing, we saw Holocaust in history. Myself, I'm a witness of genocide, and most survivors of genocide. We wish that we should fight the ideology of genocide. We should fight anti-Semitism. We should fight all sorts of racism and the violence against human. When people come here, they see what happened. They carry a message to the people outside there who never come here, especially those young ones.
The story of Sendache and that of Holocaust survivor Don Kraus are part of the permanent exhibition here.
To learn from it, to teach for other generations. How do you bring yourself to kill a child? That is the lesson. Never mind what anybody says. There must be something in you that tells you this is wrong, I don't do this.
The center director says the center will also feature temporary exhibitions on other genocidal acts, such as the ethnic cleansing in Bosnia in the 1990s, the war in Sudan's Darfur region, and others.
We hope the people that will come here, learners, students, educators, the public, will come out really with a determination to become active citizens, activists in society, to become those that will be witnesses of atrocities of the past and carry the message forward that it will never happen again.
The center will also teach people about consequences of prejudice, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, and the dangers of apathy and silence.
While the events may have happened a long time ago and far away from South Africa, curators here say the lessons are in fact much more important today than ever.
Lest we forget. Yulisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
An Egyptian professional photographer has developed a technology to allow people with impaired vision to take photos. After weeks of training, Khaled Farid took his group of students on a field trip, giving them their first opportunity to take photos of members of the public. Here's Adel El Mahrouki with more.
Photography is one of the most attractive forms of visual arts. It's been trending here in Egypt in recent years, and these students are among those who've newly learned that art. Astonishingly, they are all visually impaired.
اشتغلت تقريبا 10 سنين في دار الأوبرا المصرية بصور بس باليه.
After 5 years of shooting ballet concerts, I realized that focusing on rhythms made me take better pictures, and I realized that the ear is faster than the eye. I began experimenting. I shut my eyes and focused on the music. I already knew how the dancers pose and where they will be from previous rehearsals. It worked. I then decided to work with the visually impaired.
Khalid Farid has been a professional photographer for more than 2 decades. During the past few months, he has been developing techniques which he believes would allow people with visual disabilities become able to take pictures professionally.
Digging deeper, I realized that there is something called visual sense. They feel colors, they feel light. If you ask them where the source of light is, most of them would point close enough. And that sense is much stronger in them than in regular people. They are also more likely to take the challenge of engaging in photography.
The concept sounds unbelievable. Defying those who believe in limited human capacities, this group of visually impaired students took the challenge. After weeks of trainings, Khalid took them to their first field trip.
I was very excited about the field trip and anxious at the same time. It's a challenging experience. I always wondered how I would be able to frame a shot, adjust the focus and camera settings. Now I can even replace and choose lenses for the camera and adjust it in any location. Maybe one day, with further work and practice, I can become a professional photographer.
It was great for us to do what many thought was impossible. Nothing is impossible. It was difficult and a bit crazy. I'm a professor of piano and flute, and I act on stage. I've always wanted to take photos of our performers, or like many people, take selfies with friends.
The same training methods that made Noura capable of fixating her eyes towards a speaker has been developed to make her and her colleagues hold a camera.
We first worked on psychological approach to the visually impaired. Many of them are cautious in dealing with other people. They can translate your voice tone into feelings and know if you're caring or you're being sarcastic. I planned the course to take 3 months, but with the excitement, we have finished in 2 weeks.
It was an impressive experience for me. I love taking pictures of people. We practice engaging with people and asking to take their photos. That really boosted our confidence. And the reactions of the people we met when they see our photos makes us want to do more.
This is still an experimental phase. After all, Khalid and his group are among few other people in the world who are attempting to lay the foundation for an approach most people think won't succeed. But the support they got from the public here and from celebrities on their first trial could be enough to push them further. Soon, after some other field trips, this group is planning to hold their first exhibition in the Egyptian capital. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
We have got all the sports news.